Hey guys, it's Otto. So, you want to set up your home recording studio and you're a beginner. The process seems daunting, but you know what? It's not rocket science. In this series, I'm trying to be as to the point as possible and also trying to explain everything as easily as I possibly can to make this worth it for you. Because that's what I would have wanted years ago. Here we go. First of all, you're going to need a computer. And that computer can be a Mac, it can be a PC, and the computer you're using right now is most likely good enough. Now, for your computer, you're going to need a piece of software that you'll use to make music. Music making software is known as the Digital Audio Workstation, also known as the DAW or DAW. With a DAW, you can record sound, you can edit it to chop it up, add effects, or get your music out. Most DAWs are compatible with the Mac and PC, and some of those DAWs are the following: Pro Tools, Ableton Live, Cubase, Reaper, FL Studio. So get familiar with the DAWs that are out there, find the one that suits you the best, look up a tutorial or two on how to use it, and that's it. And now it's time to talk about the audio interface, aka the sound card. The audio interface I'll be using in this video is the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and that is a fantastic one to start out with. And it's only around $150. So an audio interface is basically a box that you plug in a microphone or an instrument into for recording sound. A microphone or instrument goes into one of these input holes in front of the box. All that input really means is that the sound from your microphone or instrument goes into the box. This audio interface has two inputs and they're both identical. You can plug an XLR cable into one of these inputs, and that's a cable that's commonly used for microphones. You can recognize an XLR by its 3 pins. This audio interface's inputs also work with 6.3mm cables, which are commonly used for guitars. So when you plug a microphone or an instrument into the interface, you have to turn up the gain knob. Gain is the power of your audio signal. The more gain you put, the louder or more powerful the signal gets. If you have too much gain, the signal will distort and sound harsh. When the signal distorts, the light around the knob will turn red. So it's important to try to keep the light green. The button that says 48V on it means phantom power. This button has to be on if you're using a condenser microphone. You adjust your monitor with the big knob over here, which is your speaker volume. There's also a small knob to the right that you use to adjust your headphone volume. In the back of the interface, there are outputs, which means, you guessed it, sound comes out of the box. Sound can come out of the box into a pair of speakers. Finally, the sound will travel through a USB cable from the back of the audio interface into your computer. And that's how the audio interface works. Focusrite also has the Scarlett Solo, which is a stripped down version of the 2i2, and it's only $100. I can also recommend audio interfaces from M-Audio or PreSonus, I think that's how you say it. So go and scout for the audio interface that suits you the best. Generally, when you're hunting for headphones or speakers, it's important to get the ones that have a flat frequency response, which basically means that all the frequencies, meaning bass, middle, and high frequencies, are all in balance with each other, making your headphones or speakers sound even or flat. So when you're mixing music with headphones or speakers that sound flat, your music will come across neutral in headphones or speakers that are warm sounding or bass heavy. With that said, let's talk about headphones. For studio headphones, I highly recommend audio-technica. For $100 you can get the M40Xs, which sound killer. I personally use the M50Xs, which look like this. These are called closed back headphones, meaning that they block or isolate outside noise. These types of headphones are fantastic for studio use because your music won't leak out of the headphones when you're recording. They're also really comfortable. Another reason why I like these headphones specifically is because the cable is detachable. So if you break the cable, you can just detach it and put another one in. As far as other studio headphones go, I can recommend AKG, Sennheiser, and Sony. When you're setting up your home recording studio, headphones will get you a very long way. And you should probably stick with that for a while because when you're getting speakers involved, you need to do some extra work. And that extra work is dealing with the acoustics of the room. Speakers send sound directly to your ears, and that's what you want But the problem is that sound is also bouncing off each wall in your room, and this is known as reflections. But no worries, this problem can be solved by putting acoustic panels in the areas of your room where these primary reflections occur. They absorb the sound. Common places to put acoustic panels in your room are the sides of your workstation and directly behind you. This applies if your studio is situated in a rectangular room like this. But panel placement does drastically depend on what kind of room you have. It's also a great idea to treat bass frequencies with bass absorbers, known as bass traps. You can put them in the corners of your room, and they're very important if your workstation is situated in a corner of a room like mine. Although try to avoid having a corner workstation to begin with. If you don't have any other option, it's okay. Neither did I. As far as listening and speaker position goes, it's good to have equal distances between your listening position and the speakers, and have the wall which is behind you be further away to avoid reflections. Your speakers should point towards your ears at your listening height, and your listening position is balanced once you can draw a triangle between your ears and each speaker. Also avoid having the speakers against the wall in front of you to avoid more issues. There's a lot more that goes into acoustics, and I would highly recommend you go look at other more in-depth videos about it, because it's only after you've dealt with the acoustics of your room that you should get a pair of speakers. So as I mentioned in the headphones video, it's important for you to get headphones and speakers that have a flat frequency response. Speakers that I highly recommend are the Genelec MO30s. They're around $400 per speaker. And for quality speakers, this is a fantastic price and a great investment. There are definitely cheaper and good alternatives out there, such as the Yamaha HS5s, which are about $200 per speaker. However, I think it's a good idea to spend a little extra money on speakers that are great quality, an industry standard, and retain their value if you're planning to resell them in the future. I also recommend speakers by Din Audio, JBL, and Atom. Each speaker has its own sound and characteristics, so if you have the opportunity, I would highly recommend you go to your local audio store and test out different ones, A/B test them, until you've found the ones that suit you the best. There are two types of microphones that I think you should know, which are the dynamic microphone and the condenser microphone. Dynamic microphones are generally more sturdy and often used for louder sound sources such as drum kits or guitar amplifiers. These types of mics are often used in live music, and they're usually less expensive. A condenser microphone, on the other hand, tends to be more expensive and more fragile. These types of mics can be used for a variety of instruments, but they work super well on vocals. To use these types of mics, you need what's called phantom power. This is something I mentioned briefly on video 2 about audio interfaces. Phantom power is often included as a button on an audio interface marked as 48V. Microphones have different polar patterns, meaning which direction the microphone picks up sound from. When a microphone picks up sound from all angles, it has an omnidirectional pattern. When it picks up sound from the front of it, it's called the cardioid pattern. When it picks up sound from the front and the back, but not the sides, it's called the figure 8 pattern. For starting out, I recommend the audio-technica AT2020. It's a very diverse microphone which you can use for vocals, guitar, miking a drum set, or even piano. I've tried that one too. And it's only $100. Once you have your microphone, the next thing you need to do is put it on a mic stand. K&M's 27105 is a great stand for around $30. I'm actually using that right now. Generally, K&M's products are great. Industry standard. Once your microphone's in the stand, you're going to need what's called a pop filter if you're recording vocals. The pop filter is something that you're going to adjust and tighten into the mic stand, and the pop filter itself will go in front of the microphone. In practice, the pop filter is there to soften consonants of the singer's voice. For instance, the letter P can sound really harsh and poppy without a pop filter. The pop filter also protects your mic from spit. When you're recording vocals, you want to avoid having reflections of the voice bouncing all over the room, creating a wet sound. What you want is the opposite, a dry sound. I personally use the acoustic panels to absorb these reflections, but you don't necessarily need that. You can also use Pro Acoustics foam screen, which you put in front of the microphone. And here's a classic. You can also record your vocals in a closet where the clothes will dampen the sound. After you've got this whole setup in order, all you need is an XLR cable, which you'll know by its 3 pins. Put that into the mic, and that'll go into your audio interface. And that's it. What is a MIDI controller, you might ask? Well, it's basically a piece of hardware that you use to play what are called virtual instruments. An example of a virtual instrument could be a horn that was actually recorded live, but all the individual notes of the horn have been separated, cut into samples, and made playable with a MIDI controller. So I could play this virtual instrument horn with this keyboard. A MIDI controller can have a keyboard or pads like this one has, and often you'll also have faders and knobs to adjust the sound as well. But a MIDI controller doesn't have to be a keyboard either. Some of them are modeled after a guitar, which is really cool. MIDI controllers don't produce sound on their own. You actually have to plug it into your computer and choose it from your DAW's preferences first. The language that your device and your computer speaks is called MIDI. Keep in mind that lots of DAWs don't actually have a great library of virtual instruments to play with. DAWs that have a great library are Logic Pro and Ableton Live. As far as recommendations go for a MIDI controller, I really love the one I have. It's called the Arturia Keylab 49 and it's around $250. The reason I love it is because it comes with a keyboard, the pads, the faders, and the knobs. You can get MIDI controllers for a lot less though. A cheaper option I'd recommend is the Novation Launch Key Mini, which has the keyboard, the pads, and the knobs, and it's around $100. I also recommend the Launch Pad Mini, which is a pad purpose MIDI controller for around $100. So that wraps up the series on how to set up your home recording studio for beginners. I hope this was helpful, and I also hope that you're less intimidated by the process, because it can seem like a lot of work. It can seem like a lot of money, but trust me, once you get past these steps, it gets so much easier, and it applies with everything in life. Things just get easier. And once it's easier, it's effortless and fun. That's that. If you want to see more content, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time. Otto signing out.